Okay, so here's the thing. $1,500 US, it's a lot of money, right? But in the world of professional saxophones, it's probably about half of what you'd expect to pay for a recognized brand. So I was pretty intrigued when John Paul, who are a brand I know for making student saxophones, brought out their professional range. Now I know this happened a little while ago, but I've just recently got my hands on these two. This is their professional soprano and their professional alto. But they're only $1,500 each. I mean, come on, seriously, how good could a saxophone be for $1,500? Well, today I want to demonstrate both of these saxophones for you because I've been playing on both of these pretty much exclusively for the last couple of months. So today I'll play them for you, and I'm also going to compare them with my normal pro saxes. So you'll hear how this John Paul alto compares with my $3,000 Yamaha 62, and this soprano, $1,500 worth, compares with my $5,000 Yamaha 82Z soprano. Let's get stuck in. So this is the AS860 from John Paul, and at first glance, it's a really good looking saxophone. I mean, I love the deep gold lacquer that's on it. I'm not sure though that I'm convinced about the black pearls. And to be honest with you, when I first saw it, that was kind of like a, really? But the engraving on the back of this saxophone is beautiful. I also like the engraving on the neck, and the metal touch piece for your left thumb, that looks great too and feels really comfortable. So let's have a quick listen to how it sounds. Now, I don't know what you think, but it was the tone of this saxophone that really got me interested because to me, when I'm playing it, it sounds lovely. It's got a really rich, warm sound. When I'm recording on this saxophone, I can definitely hear a darkness to it compared to my Zebra sax over there, which is a student model 280 Yamaha, I think it is, from like the 70s. So this has definitely got a darker sound and pretty comparable to my 62, which I'll play for you in just a second. Also, the keywork feels brilliant under your fingers. It's really well made. It feels really tight and very, very even. And the other thing is the intonation on this saxophone I find to be really, really good, particularly all the way up into the altissimo, which for me is popping out really, really clearly. Now, on both of these saxophones today, I'm using the new DVHR from Jody Jazz. I'm using a Leger 2.5 reed and Jody's Powering ligature. Let's have a listen to how the Yamaha compares, and let me know in a comment if you can hear a difference. By the way, if you enjoy videos like this and it's helpful to you, then consider subscribing, hit that bell notification too. I'm making videos like this all the time. I wouldn't want you to miss them. So for both of these saxophones, I'm not using any effects. That's just the recorded sound, warts and all. What do you think? Can you hear much of a difference? For me, when I'm listening back to those two, it's so hard to tell. I've been playing that Yamaha 62 Alto for 30 years, so I'm really comfortable with it. And that always makes it difficult to compare saxophones because that is so much more familiar than any other thing that I've played. But I have to say, when I listen back to the recorded sound, it's hard for me to distinguish the two. And actually, I think the John Paul Alto sounds really, really good, particularly when it costs half as much money. Let's have a listen again. This time I'm going to swap between the John Paul and the Yamaha, but I'll put the track on, I'll put some effects on it as well, and see how the two compares when the saxophone's in context. That I like to test saxophones like this is because inside Sax School we've got thousands of people learning with us, and many of them are looking for an entry-level saxophone or a mid-range saxophone. But what I find interesting about this saxophone from John Paul is it's a mid-priced saxophone, but it's got some pro-level qualities. And I think that's very intriguing for somebody who's newer on their saxophone journey or has got a budget that won't quite stretch to a new pro saxophone. Let's check out the soprano. Now, I'll be honest with you, I'm quite picky about my soprano saxophones. I have played some great soprano saxophones in the past professionally. I really like the Yamaha that I play on at the moment. It's the 82Z. Great intonation, great key work. I've owned Yanagisawa sopranos before too, which I really, really love. But when it comes to lower priced or entry level or intermediate sopranos, generally I find them to be, you know, a bit temperamental with tuning. Key work doesn't feel that great. They just aren't that fun to play. That's why I was really surprised when this turned up. And I have to tell you, I was skeptical. But right from the get-go, this soprano is a surprising saxophone. Now, the look of this saxophone is amazing. It looks beautiful. The engraving's really nice. It looks pretty sharp in this silver finish as well. The key work, I'll grant it's not quite as light and smooth as my Yamaha, but that's a $5,000 saxophone. This is a $1,500 saxophone. What is interesting about this soprano though, is the intonation is very, very good. And I can actually pop up into the altissimo on this soprano. And I'll let you in a little secret here, Sax School followers. That's something I've never been able to do on a soprano saxophone. Altissimo and soprano, I've always found really challenging, but I can do it on this saxophone. I'm not sure why, but there you go. So let's have a listen to how it sounds. Now, to keep this really easy, I'm actually using a Jody Jazz HR Star mouthpiece. It's not an expensive mouthpiece, but I think it pairs quite well with this saxophone. Have a listen and see what you think. So what do you think of the sound? I mean, listening back, I actually quite like the recorded sound of this, but now let's have a listen to my Yamaha. It's the 82Z. This is a $5,000 saxophone. See if you can hear a difference. So what do you think? It's kind of negligible, isn't it? There's a small difference in there. Now I'm lucky I've got the choice between those two saxophones. So if I had to choose, I'd probably go for the Yamaha. But I tell you what, if I had $1,500 to spend and I wanted to get a new saxophone, a new soprano saxophone, this is definitely something I would consider, because for the money, frankly, I think it's quite surprising. So just to finish up, let's listen to these two sopranos side by side, and I'll put the effects on so you can see how they sound in context, and then I've got a couple of extra thoughts for you about choosing a saxophone before we finish today. So when you hear it with the backing track, what do you think? Do you prefer the Yamaha or do you prefer the John Paul? And I guess the real question is, where's your budget? Are you looking at spending $1,500 on a saxophone? Because if you are, then I would suggest the John Paul is actually a great choice. Alternatively, of course, you could look at a used saxophone, and that's a great way to get a pro quality saxophone at a more reasonable price. Now, it might be difficult to get a pro Yamaha for $1,500 used. That's in great condition, but it's definitely worth exploring that option. However, if you're looking for a new saxophone, I'd definitely consider something like the John Paul soprano or the alto. I've been super impressed with them. And I will say, I'm not paid to make these videos. I just genuinely like to make videos about interesting saxophones that are great choices for you guys. Now, just a quick pro tip for you. It's always best if you can try a saxophone before you buy it. Watching reviews like this is great, but picking it up and feeling it in your hands is really, really important. So a big retailer like Sax.co that we've got in England is fantastic. Take your mouthpiece, take a bunch of reeds, take your music, and take your time to try these saxophones out in a bunch of different styles and really see what you think, because a lot about saxophones these days is personal choice. To be honest with you, there are so many great, well-made saxophones on the market these days. So it's about finding one that talks to you, that you just pick up and love to play, because that's going to keep you playing all the time. That's really what it's about. I hope you enjoyed the lesson today. Keep practicing hard, and I'll catch you on the next video.